afternoon, everyone. Eddie Webb. We are here at the New Media Lab at Mesa Community College. Today, we are honored and privileged to have our newest president, Dr. Richard Daniel, joining us on the podcast. We have a series of questions that faculty and staff have developed, and we are looking forward to this conversation. President Daniel, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you, Dr. Webb, and I appreciate the work that you're doing in the New Media Lab. Looking forward to this conversation.
So our first question is, we want to know a little bit about your journey to becoming a Maricopa president. I'm interested in your story about when did you realize you could be a president of a college?
So I grew up in a mining town in Superior, Arizona. And in that mining town, the aspiration is not necessarily to go to college, but necessarily to go into the workforce and work in the copper mine there. That was never an aspiration that I had. The aspiration I had was to go to college. However, I didn't have anyone in my family that navigated that pathway for me. My parents didn't go to college. They didn't finish high school. So there wasn't anybody there at the dinner table talking about, let's go to college, this is what you need to do, this is how you prepare for it. But I was fortunate to have very good teachers who helped me understand early on that I could be a leader. And I think the leadership aspect is what helped me initially. In fifth grade, my fifth grade teacher identified me and said, I think you need to run for student body president. At the time, I was going to a school that had fifth and sixth graders, and at the time when you're a kid, it's really a popularity contest. It's not really about politics or whether or not you have a platform. It's really about who's the more popular kid. Well, the sixth grader was more popular than I was because he had already been there for 2 years. And I was, the first year of the fifth grade in that school. But that was the starting point when she said to me, I think you can be a leader. So that was the point when I thought as a fifth grader, wow, what is leadership? And student council was that first process. I didn't win the election as student body president, but I was appointed to the student council as a representative from my classroom. And that's what kind of opened the doors to me to think, wow, this is an opportunity. I can lead by supporting the school, by doing these things. And then from that point, I began to have other teachers and other coaches helping me understand that leadership is not just in the academic side, it's also on the athletic field. So I was a football player, I was a basketball player, and I was a tennis player. And I led by example in terms of trying to do the best that I could. But more importantly, I had a counselor who said, I think you can go to college. And this is what you have to do. You have to maintain your grades, do the best you can, be at the top of your class. And when you have opportunities to apply for scholarships and apply for admission to the institutions you want to go to, you won't have any issues getting in if you take these courses and you take this pathway. And I started my college prep pathway. And that was kind of that first step. So I say that to you because it's important to understand that my leadership beginning started when I was in school, and it was actually nurtured all the way through. So when I went to college, I actually went to college as a pre-med student. I was going to medical school. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I had no idea that you could work in a college or university. I didn't know that was a pathway. I knew there were faculty and staff who worked there, but I didn't think that that was the pathway that I was going to obviously choose. But in that process, I learned in the opportunity to be able to understand very quickly that students who come to, when I went to Arizona State University, students who come to ASU, particularly from minority backgrounds, I'm a first-generation Latino college student, you don't necessarily have people who look like you. There wasn't a lot of Latino students, there wasn't a lot of African-American students, and there wasn't a lot of Native American students at ASU when I was there. We had very small numbers, at that time. I mean, there were 200 Latino students, I think, on the campus when I was a freshman at Arizona State University. And one of the things that I thought is, wow, this is interesting. I'm learning more about what's happening on this campus because I had the good fortune to be employed as a peer advisor with the Minority Assistance Program. And that taught me about access and equity, something I knew nothing about. I didn't have any idea what that was. And growing up in Superior, we never talked about access because the majority of the students who went to school there were Latino Hispanic students. So we were the majority. We never saw ourselves as a minority. No one had ever said to me, "Oh, you're a minority." First time I was told I was a minority is when I went to ASU, and I received a letter that said, "I'm a minority." And I'm like, what does that mean? Had no context of that because that wasn't how I was raised. So as I thought about the future, I thought, oh, this is great. I'm learning this stuff. I'm going to go into medical school. And then fast forward, I decide, after taking a year off of college and preparing for the MCAT, and I started working at ASU just for 1 year as an admissions representative. They hired me because I was very active as a student. And I began seeing the difference when I was going out to the rural communities, to the tribal communities to recruit students. And I thought, wow, I'm actually making a difference because I'm helping students see they can go to college. I'm letting them know that these are opportunities that are available to them, but they didn't know how to get there. They didn't know the pathway. And I was opening those doors for them, and I felt really good about it. And I thought, wow, this can actually be a career. And that's kind of how I started my career journey in higher ed. And I thought early on that if I could set sights on a goal, I wanted to be a college president. So I set aside on a goal after I started my master's and I completed it, that one day I wanted to be a college president. I was going to navigate that process. And I was working through the process and had a lot of mentors and people who helped me along the way. Because this doesn't happen on your own. You have people who help you, who navigate for you and provide you resources and advice along the way. And as I was going through that whole entire process, one of the things that was important to me is that someone said, well, in order to continue this pathway, you probably also need to get a doctoral degree, a terminal degree. So I did that because I knew that at the time, in order to be able to be competitive, you had to have all of the credentials. So that's what I did. And when I started that doctoral degree and I completed it, I was continuing to work at the university, at Arizona State University, and working through a process and being able to get promoted and into various departments. It allowed me to see the breadth and depth of the institution. And as I decided to leave ASU and go somewhere else, I thought, okay, what am I going to do as I think about this pathway to the presidency? And I began looking to see how I could strengthen my opportunities. And I decided to come back to Arizona and then came back to the Maricopa Community Colleges and started working at South Mountain Community College. And that's when the first opportunity to the presidency really kind of was the opportunity opened for me. I became a fellow with the National Community College Hispanic Council, and that fellowship actually leads to a presidency. And, many times what it does is it helps these leaders who are on the precipice of moving forward to that next level. It gives you the experience and it gives you the networking opportunities to begin to look at opportunities as presidents. At the time that I was had accepted that and they had selected me as a fellow, I was then selected as an assistant vice president at the University of Texas at El Paso. So I decided to take the University of Texas at El Paso position, and I didn't actually get to start the fellowship or finish it. But the experiences I got at UTEP actually then opened my eyes to what other things were available, because I was able to receive tremendous opportunities and experiences that only broadened my ability to then think about, if I want to be a college president, I'm getting more tools and I'm getting more resources. I'm getting more access to opportunities. I'm doing things in DC on a regular basis that allow me to understand how then I could make a difference at other institutions if I were to come back. So I kind of thought about all of these things, and I came back to Arizona after serving 10 years in El Paso, going to the Northeast for a little bit and then coming back. And then an opportunity, 6 years into my stay here in Arizona, an opportunity came up at South Mountain Community College, and I thought, this is the time. This is the time for me to take all my experiences and come back to an institution that I left 17 years ago and think about how I can contribute to this community. And that's how, the pathway started. It was basically by an opportunity because of experiences I had as a student, going through elementary school and college, and then obviously the experiences I've had, over 30 years on a college and university campus. And that's why I think, being in this position is so important, because I get to live and be part of a community that makes a difference and transforms lives each and every day.
Wow. Thank you very much. Amazing, amazing story. What I hear is teachers' resilience and the will and the support you had around you to go from each one of these phases to develop yourself into who you are. And very impressive. Thank you. How do you develop trust with faculty and staff as a new leader in a college that has struggled to retain permanent executive team members?
That's a very important question. I think any place I've ever been, one of the things that I do is I involve myself in the community. You actually show up, you go to them, you spend some time in their spaces, you get to know what they're doing, and you believe in what they're doing. And more importantly, you understand the commitment they have and then what happens as a result of their work with the students. Because every campus and university that I've been on, one of the college university I've been on, is we always look at how do we take a student from the point of entry and help them get to their goal. And you do that because you establish these relationships and this rapport with the faculty and staff who help them navigate that. And my belief is to get to know them, demonstrate authenticity to them, actually develop some trust with them, work in collaboration with them. If you just go to them when you need something, then it's obviously just a one-sided transactional relationship. But when it's reciprocal, when they come to you and you go to them, they know it's a partnership. I develop partnerships every place I've been because at the end of the day, we're only as strong as the people that we work with. And the people that we work with are the most important talent that we have on this campus, on the two campuses that we have at Mesa Community College, both Red Mountain and Southern and Dobson. We have amazing talent. And we have to understand that if we don't work together and collaborate, then we're not going to be successful. And it has to be that trust factor, demonstrating to them that they can believe in you and that you can believe in them.
I agree. And I think bringing that level of stability is something much needed here at Mesa. Can you walk us through how you communicate to mid-level and senior level staff who report to you?
I think one of the most important things that I do is I actually walk around the campus and meet people where they're at. I spend time in their offices. I have them come to my office. We meet in groups. The people that directly report to me, I'm with them on a regular basis to understand what they're doing and support them. But most importantly, I like to walk around, especially those people who report to those who report to me, and see the work they do. I like to be in the buildings where the people that do the work that report through the vice presidents and other direct reports in my chain of operational command, if you will. I like to be able to understand what they're doing and then be able to see me present in their spaces. Because sometimes when people are removed from those spaces, they think that there's no way that they have a voice. And I like to actually just to go talk to them. So they see that there's a voice. They have a voice because they can talk to me directly. They don't necessarily have to go through their director, their manager, and their vice president. If they want to say something to me, they can while I'm walking around and I'm spending time with them. And I think that's the most important thing to do is actually spend the time and help nurture them and develop them. Developing talent is one of the most important things that I do on the campuses that I've been on, is I want to develop the talent because I know how valuable that is for the institution.
Absolutely. When we have our projects and this room is packed with students, which will start happening soon, and a president has walked in here just to say hello, just to come in and get a refreshment or a donut or something and just hang out with the students. What you guys don't get to see is when you leave the room, how excited the students are. They're like, wow, that was our president and just came down here and hung out with us. Here's a question, though, because so many of us in the last year and a half have been going through, audits and analytics and votes and decision-making due to our budget crisis. Would you call it a crisis at this point or just a concern?
I would say it's a crisis, a budget crisis.
So do you have fresh and new ways and strategies of how to move us forward during this crisis, but keep the ship intact?
That's a very important question because one of the things that I have said a couple of different times is that in order for us to move forward, we have to understand what our budget is. People need to be aware of it. There has to be more transparency about the budget. They have to understand the basics of the financial situation in each of their departments. Even earlier today, I was meeting with some members of the leadership team, and they were asking some questions about budget and transparency. And one of the things I said to them is that the intent is to make sure that everybody understands what budget they have and what is the best way to be accountable to it in the expenditures perspective and the reconciliation. But one of the things that we will be doing is that we're creating a budget steering committee that's going to help do a couple things. One is to be able to look at how we can identify opportunities to reduce the deficit we have in areas, but also plan for our budget for 26, because I want there to be a budget planning process that everybody's involved in. There hasn't been a perspective, from my understanding, that the campus has been, or the campuses, the college as a whole, has been involved in budget planning. I believe people have been giving maybe budgets that they've had in the past, and it's just rolled over. But we actually want to create budgets where people can say, this is what I think it takes to operate my department. Not what we think it took to operate that maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, but realistically, what does it take to operate today's department that you have? And really begin to look at those things, because I think it's important for us to look at the real data, but it has to be all it has to be brought together with the entire team of people understanding what that means. So the task force is going to be looking at the training of how we can train people to understand the budget basics, but then also thinking about how do we help them understand how to create a budget if they don't currently have one, or if they do have one and if it's maybe not necessarily the budget that they need, how do we make some changes to that? There'll need to be some reallocations, and they'll need to be take some strong looks at, make some hard decisions regarding potential allocating dollars to other areas that maybe currently aren't being allocated efficiently and or sufficiently.
And then you'll have the final say after the committee has reported to you.
Correct. So I think one of the intent is that they're going to report back, and then I will take a look and obviously have some consultation with the vice presidents as well, and understand where do we make these decisions that are going to be in the best interest of the institution, the students, and the communities that we serve. I think that's one of the things that's going to be so important, is that we should make decisions not based on the individual, but based on the institution needs and the student needs and the stakeholders that we serve. That, at the end of the day, is going to be very important, is how do we serve all those constituents? And it's focused on that and not necessarily on the individual, person, whether it be faculty or staff.
Yeah, and I've always thought that's a real fine line to walk, because we are individuals that are hired here to be our best, right? To provide excellence. And then you get lost in the institution part of it. And so I think there's a real fine dance between honoring individual uniqueness in terms of, and I'm just coming from a teaching perspective, great curriculum, innovative curriculum, that sort of thing, and pairing that with what's best for the institution. I think we have to be very mindful and thoughtful in that process.
Correct. And I think the two things, going back to your earlier point, is that it's all based on ensuring that teaching, learning, and support services are protected. So that's the difference. When I say the individual, so like, for instance, if you're an individual of one and you are serving very few people, then that's not serving the institution well. But if you're an individual of one and you're serving thousands of people, that's a different story. So it's really protecting the core mission of the institution of teaching, learning, and support services.
What do you see as the value of art, music, dance, and theater in a community college education?
The arts are something that are so important because people come through the arts for a lot of different opportunities academically. And I think one of the things that happens, and you see this in schools a lot, is they cut the arts. When they start cutting the budgets, they cut the arts. I think the arts are critical. I think we have to figure out how they allow our students to be successful. I know we have tremendous, I went to the art gallery recently where they actually were able to provide scholarships to the high school students who had the art exhibit this past summer. Amazing work. It's amazing to see these students come on stage and get recognized for the work that they do, but more importantly, to see their work, and then they're able to exhibit that for the community to see it. So I believe the arts are critically important. I think we have to understand it's a balance of how do we do this work and support our students in the best ways that we can. So I think it's part of what we do as an institution is we have to make sure that the balance is there and that we're supporting that. So I know that it's had a long history here at Mesa. I think there's tremendous things that we find in our productions. We have productions in music, in theater, the art gallery I mentioned, also in dance performances. So we're doing a lot of these things. And the community is obviously very engaged here. I think we have to make sure that our community is aware of all of the things that we have. Bring more community presence to our productions, to be able to showcase it more. I work on, and as a volunteer, I've done some things with, the arts outside, and I know the value that they place on that. And especially as a community college where we train leaders to go out there and perform, this is amazing. So I don't want to lose that. I want to make sure we continue to make it more accessible to more people to see the value and the performances that we put on here at Mesa Community College.
I agree. So for our last question here, our college is a Hispanic serving institution. Tell us how you see from your experience, how do you plan on enriching our institution and culture?
As a Latino, as a first-generation Latino myself, and I've worked at 2 Hispanic serving institutions, most recently at South Mountain Community College, which was one of the first Hispanic serving institutions in the state of Arizona, and at the University of Texas at El Paso, which is one of the largest Hispanic serving institutions in the country. And one of the things that I find from that is that those designations have to be lived. It just can't be a number. We just can't be designated because we've reached 25% of the population. We actually have to live the experiences and showcase that experiences to the students who attend. So it's actually by a couple of different things. One, it's the programming that we have that support Latino students, Hispanic students to want to be part of the institution. But it's also how we do that with reflect to the faculty and staff who are reflective of the Hispanic culture themselves and understand that our students want to be able to see themselves on the campus, reflective in those that teach them, those that support them, those that lead them, but more importantly, those that help them understand that they too can achieve that because they can see people in these roles and say, wow, I could be a faculty member here. I could do this role here. I could go on and I could be successful. And that to me, growing up, as I said earlier, when I grew up in the small mining town, I didn't know anything about Hispanic serving institutions. It wasn't a thing then. But I saw people like myself who I eventually could model, and they were primarily teachers. I didn't necessarily think I was going to be a teacher, but they were the role models that helped me think about the future. And I think that's the piece that's critical, is that we have to have the role models, we have to have the programming, but more importantly, we have to have the support that students feel that they get, and that we then help them navigate to that next level, whatever that next level is for them. And that's going to be my commitment, is that we build on that and that we support that, because I understand, and it's not just for the Latinos and the Hispanics here at Mesa, but it's for all students. I want to make sure that our Native American students, we have a significant number of students from 22 tribal nations around Arizona, plus other tribal nations from across the country, that they feel that as well, that our African American students feel that our Caucasian students, our Asian students, all of our students feel that they're supported here. Because when we support all students, everybody rises to the occasion and they achieve their goals and their dreams.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love that part of your story about not knowing you're a minority, or that I just dig that. I had no idea my family was poor until I got into high school and somebody told me. because we were a big family and everybody worked and we were a family, and I had no idea we were poor until I got into high school.
Exactly.
And now I realize, as what Robert Duvall says, never confuse wealth with money. President Daniel, we want to thank you for your time. I know you could have easily said no to this because of your schedule, but you made room for us, and we deeply appreciate it. And I know our college and our district will when we publish this in a couple days. President Daniel, do you have a last word for our community?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity and to know that I am committed to supporting Mesa Community College to continue to make a difference in the lives of those we serve. Thank you.
In my dad's language, we say, Wanton, Wanton, Gali el iliga, ski, Eddie Webb, Wanto. Take care of each other out there. We are all we have. Wanton.